State any restrictions and solve for n. First, to get our restrictions, we need to make sure we're not dividing by 0. So that means we need to make sure that this first denominator is not 0. And we need the second denominator to also not be 0. Now, the number 3, no matter what n is not equal to 0. So this really isn't telling us anything. So our only restriction is that n can't be 0. Next, we go on to the solving part. To do this, let's get rid of the fractions first. We can do that by multiplying both sides by the common denominator. So our common denominator in this case, we want to get rid of both the n and the 3. So our LCD would be 3n. Let's take the original equation and multiply both sides by 3n. When we distribute this through, on the left-hand side, we have 3n times n, and then 3n times 3 over n. On the right-hand side, we have 3n times 26 over 3. Now, let's simplify and see what reduces. For the first term, we're going to multiply the n's together, so we've got 3n squared. On the second term, I see that the n's are going to cancel, and we're left with 3 times 3, which is 9. And on the right-hand side, I see that the 3's cancel. So we're left with just 26 times n, or 26n. Okay, now because we have an n squared term and an n term, let's give everything to the same side of the equation so it's equal to 0. So we'll do that by subtracting 26n on both sides of the equation. So this way on the right-hand side, everything cancels and we're left with 0. On the left, none of these are like terms, so we can't combine them together. We're just going to list them all out. 3n squared minus 26n minus 9. And now we can solve this either by the quadratic formula or factoring or whatever other methods you have. I'm going to try to factor this. And I'm going to use the grouping method because I see there's no common factor and we have a coefficient in the front. So to do grouping, you take the first times the last. So 3 times negative 9 is negative 27. So I'm looking for two terms that multiply, that have a product of negative 27, and that add up to negative 26. So negative 27, we could write this as 1 times negative 27, or 3 times negative 9, 9 times negative 3, or 27 times negative 1. This is every possible way we could have two numbers that multiply to give us negative 27. Let's add each of these pairs together. So 1 plus negative 27 is negative 26. Then we've got negative 6, positive 6, positive 26. I see what we're looking for is right here. So we know that our two numbers are positive 1 and negative 27. So that means when we go to write this out, when we go to group it, we'll have 3n squared plus 1n minus 27n, and then minus 9 will come down. Now we're going to split this into two groups. We look for a common factor in the first group, and I see that these both have an n in common. So if we factor the n out, we're left with 3n plus 1. For the second pair, I see that they both have a 9 in common, and I'm going to factor this leading negative sign with it. So if you factor out a negative 9, we're left with 3n plus 1, and this still equals 0. Now, big picture common factor, I see that these both have a 3n minus 1 in common, so we can factor that out to the front. And after you've factored out the 3n plus 1, what's left in the parentheses will be n minus 9. Okay, so now that we've got it factored, we're going to use the 0 property. And this means that either 3n plus 1 equals 0 or n minus 9 equals 0. To solve that first equation, let's begin by subtracting 1 on both sides. So this way we have 3n equals negative 1. Then we're going to divide both sides by 3. So that way the 3's cancel and we've got n by itself. And n equals negative 1/3. For the other equation, we can solve for n by adding 9 to both sides of the equation. On the left-hand side, the 9's cancel, and we're left with n equals 9. Now, neither one of these two are the restrictions. If we go back to the beginning of the problem, we found that our only restriction was that n can't equal 0. Neither of these two fall into that restriction. That means we have two solutions, n equals -1/3 and n equals 9.